And when we do understand this, that beautiful statement you began with from John Paul II, and it's from Mulieris Dignitatem, his document on the dignity and vocation of women. And I believe it's section 26, where he says, the Eucharist is the sacrament of the bridegroom and of the bride. And then he goes on to say, this is from memory, but it's very close to this. He says, because Christ linked the Eucharist so closely with the apostolic ministry, he wanted to show in the Eucharist the relationship of man and woman. He wanted to show in the Eucharist the relationship of masculinity and femininity. He says it is a relationship willed by God, both in the mystery of creation and in the mystery of redemption. This is our redemption right here. This is where redemption happens. And yes. This is one of my favorite, there it is, one of my favorite renderings of what happened on Calvary.
Let me just say,
artist is making.
Let me just say real quick that for those who listen and don't see the video, that Christopher is holding up the Nuptial Crucifix, which is one of our symbols at Hope's Garden. And our members wear Nuptial Crucifix, just like the one Christopher's holding up. And it's Mary standing at the foot of the cross, holding a chalice up to the bridegroom's wounded side. And then I'll let you talk about how this is spelled.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Laura. Yes, that's so important for those who can't see it. The symbolism of the open chalice, receiving the flow of blood and water from the heart of the bridegroom. I remember it was years ago, 30 plus years ago, I was listening to an old cassette tape of Bishop Fulton Sheen. And I remember pulling off to the side of the road and rewinding this several times. Did I just hear that? Did I just hear that? And, you know, Fulton Sheen in his big booming voice, he says, do you know what is happening at the foot of the cross? And I was like, okay, what? He said, nuptials, I tell you, nuptials. Christ the bridegroom mounts the marriage bed of the cross, not in pleasure, but in pain, to give up his body for his bride. And who is at the foot of the cross? And what does he call her? Woman. And he went on to explain, whenever Christ calls Mary woman, we're at a wedding. We're at a wedding. And the fathers of the church had no difficulty recognizing that the woman at the foot of the cross, obviously in the flesh, she is always his mother. But in the deeper mystical dimension of Calvary, Mary is the new Eve. She is the symbol of the church. And as such, she stands as the bride. And there is a mystical union. There is the consummation of a mystical marriage. Here we find grace perfecting nature. And that's a fundamental principle of Catholic theology, that the order of grace does not erase the order of nature. It does not eliminate the order of nature. It does not negate the order of nature. It takes up all that is true, good, and beautiful in nature and perfects it, brings it to utmost fulfillment. Now let's look at that word nature for a moment. It comes from the Latin natus, which means birth, generation. Think nativity, right? Nature, the fundamental elements of nature are sperm and egg meeting. That is natus. That is nature in its most fundamental element. And let us recall Christ says to Nicodemus, you cannot enter the kingdom unless you are regenerated, born anew. And Nicodemus is confused. He says, wait a minute, can a grown man enter his mother's womb a second time? Now, interestingly, Jesus does not say no, right, but he raises the conversation to a whole new level. And he says, Nicodemus, if you don't understand the natural reality, the earthly reality, how will you understand the heavenly reality? The natural reality is husband and wife, the two become one flesh. The heavenly reality, the supernatural reality is what happens right here at the cross. The new Adam, the new Eve, perfect nature and consummate a mystical marriage. And it bears supernatural fruit. It is a fertile union in the supernatural order. Because what does the new Adam say to the new Eve? Woman, behold your
son.
Your son. The beloved disciple is the mystical offspring of the mystical marriage that was consummated on what St. Augustine calls the marriage bed of the cross. And this is what is being sacramentally represented on our altars every time we go to Mass. And so the fathers of the church had no difficulty speaking of the altar at Mass as a mystical marriage bed. And we should have no trouble recognizing that the marriage bed for husband and wife, because of the grace of the sacrament, is also a kind of altar where we are meant to be. And that's the key word, meant to be, because sadly, we're so broken and we've run out of wine that we don't know how to enter into these dimensions of our humanity. But it is meant to be, the marital embrace is meant to be a sacramental participation in what happened at Calvary. This is a great mystery, St. Paul says. The Holy Communion of man and woman is a great mystery, and it refers to Christ and the church. This is our faith. This is what's happening at Mass. When we understand this, so many dimensions of the Holy Eucharist and the liturgy get opened up for us that just takes us into glory after glory after glory after glory.